Okay.
Welcome, everybody. It is so good to see you. I'm asking everybody, if they have not already done so, I kind of try to do it as a group, the beginning, to mute yourself
Okay.
so that if you have some background noise you are that you're not aware of it. Jess, you muted me, Jess. Somebody muted me. Okay, I'm unmuted. um, there you go. So anyway, it's good to see you. Casey, hon, it has been forever. Hello, hello. So welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to you all. Again, we'll get started. We try and give everybody just a couple of minutes to get logged in case people are running a few minutes late. So we will get started in a few. It's good to see so many people here. We'll wait one more minute and then we'll get started. If you've just joined us and you have not muted yourself, please do. Good to see new faces and not so new faces here. All righty. I am going to get started. My name is Sherry Simaristi. I'm the Associate Executive Director of Angel Flight West. Welcome to everybody to our June Town Hall. Our agenda today will, I'll introduce you to the mission operations team, all of whom are on this call. I'll introduce them to you by photo. We'll do a mission moment, which is a little bit of the heart of the organization and why we're here. Announce the upcoming town halls. David Nathan will do some volunteer recognition, and then we will get to the meat of the meeting, which is Sean Oswald. Here's the mission operations team: myself, mission coordinators Natalie Peters, Maddie Eichten, and Julia Brecker, our operations manager Alejandra Ramirez, and our volunteer services coordinators Rochelle and David. Those are the folks that make all the missions happen. This is Shine. Shine is just about 10 years old. When she was a year old, or when she was a toddler, she reached up on the kitchen counter and unfortunately pulled down a bowl of hot soup, pouring it onto her upper chest and right arm, severely burning herself. As all of you can imagine, that is a painful and traumatic experience for everybody, the family included. About a decade later, the Arizona Burn Foundation reached out to Shine and invited her to Camp Courage, which is a camp for a week for young burn survivors there in Arizona. We've been flying for them for many, many years. Shine was able to go on this flight, and her mom said, Jessica said, that you can really feel the passion for what these pilots are doing. And she was laughing at the photo of Shine asleep in the back of the plane. For those of you that have flown campers, particularly those on their way home, that's frequently what you see. As for camp, Shine had a blast and she can't wait to attend next year. It was a wonderful experience for our daughter. She'll live with this happy memory forever. All the hardships and barriers that a family can endure, we grew from that and it made us stronger. So thanks to all of you for providing the travel assistance it needs for kids like Shine to get to camp, and for the other passengers we serve to get to their medical appointments. Our upcoming town halls. July 16th will be a safety session debrief. Our Angel Flight West safety officers will talk to you about safety. We'll announce what the topic is as we get closer. And in August, we'll talk to you about pilot preferences. So many of you maybe already have worked with that. Some of you have not, but the pilot preferences will really assist us in sending you the appropriate communications for the appropriate mission. So if you're flying a 172, we won't send you the communications about a mission for 4 people at 700 pounds. And now David Nathan will talk to you about our mission milestones.
All right. Thanks, Sherry. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're glad you could make it. Wanted to take a quick moment to recognize some of the recent milestones that our command pilots have reached. So starting in Utah, we have Gabriel Bowen, who reached his 25th mission. In Nevada, Tim Poles reached his 25th mission. And actually, I believe he reached his 26th today. We have Jim Newell in Montana with 25 missions. In Hawaii, Peter Miller reached his 25th mission. In Colorado, Joseph Kellogg and Robert Kinney flew 25 missions each. In Idaho, David Taylor flew 50 missions. In SoCal, Scott Williams and Daniel Watts both flew 25 missions. In Arizona, we have our wing leader, Alan Underwood, reaching his 25th mission, and Phil Council reaching his 50th mission. In Northern California, Jacob Campbell and Chris Mather both reached 25 missions flown, and Ken Newberry reached triple digits with 100 missions. And last but not least, Dave Lombard reached the big 200 missions. So big shout out to all of our command pilots and congratulations on reaching those milestones. So on to our Earth Angels, our top drivers so far for the year 2024. We have our Reluctant Endeavor Award winner, Dennis Phelan, out of Arizona with 46 missions. In Washington, we have Marlene Hutchinson with 31 missions and Owen Talbert with 6 missions. In Northern California, we have Dottie-Ann McReynolds with 16 missions. In Southern California, we have Sandra Cano, 17 missions, Lynn Sturgis, 10 missions, future command pilot Flavio Giovanni with 10 missions, Lois Arfus with 9 missions, and Tom Rodenbaugh with 6 missions. Colorado, we have Costa Constantine with 9 missions, and in Utah, Karen Arden with 6 missions. So if you are a command pilot and you drive, please let us know. We want to know. We did also want to give a big shout out and thank you to everyone who's been able to contribute to the Dr. Randy Sherman Access for All Fund. So far this year, Angel Flight West has been able to arrange 309 missions, and that's cost about $11,000. So thank you to everyone who made donations, but also want to point out that if you're able to drive, it is not only a better experience for the passengers, it does free up those funds for other things like backup airlines. So big shout out to all our amazing volunteers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Okay, at this time, I'm going to introduce Sean Oswald. Sean is a volunteer pilot. He joined Angel Flight West in 2017. He's flown 159 flights. I will give a little shout out to Sean. Sean is one of those guys that will take a look at the available missions list and call us and say, you know what, if you can do this and that, I'll do this and that, and combine missions. It's really helpful to us and we super appreciate it. Sean is in Northern California. Oh, are you in Nevada now? He's up there. He's up north, and he flies a Piper Navajo. Sean, over to you.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction, Sherry. None of us as pilots can do what we want to be able to do without the coordination staff that all of the Angel Flight operations personnel do. And we have to extend a big shout out to everyone, not only in the meeting, but that's still behind the scenes working the coordination of the flights that are currently in progress or trying to find pilots. The amount of work that you and your staff put out to help get these people around makes our job considerably easier. And we thank you so very, very much for doing so. For all the rest of the volunteers, we do this because we want to do it. There's many reasons for doing it. Some just as a give back, some building time, some because they've experienced different hardships and they can relate to what other passengers are going through. Either way, it's a wonderful organization. I was aware of it a few years before buying my airplane, and I bought the airplane specifically for these missions. As background, I'm just a recently retired airline pilot. I was involved in corporate aviation concurrent with my airline career. So some of the things I'm going to mention today deal more with passenger service, a broader range of issues that I consider in terms of flight to help our passengers be a little bit more comfortable. I have a strong focus on safety. As an organization, safety is paramount. If we get there safely, the people are going to get there safely. And as I used to tell my airline passengers, I want to get home to my family. So we have the upcoming meeting that is going to have a greater focus, but towards the end of my presentation, there are a few points that I do want to bring up. In the meantime, on with the show. I know we've got some new people here. You're in for a wonderful adventure with Angel Flight and the passengers as we travel. Next slide, please. In preparation for an Angel Flight, first thing I do is log in and try to get a general idea of what type of flight I'm going to want to be doing, what the conditions are that allow me to perform that flight, looking at weather, et cetera, et cetera. I look at the health concerns of the passengers to see what I can bring to them to help make their flight a little bit better. Oftentimes, new passengers especially will be nervous about flying in a small plane. The headlines on just about every news organization are small plane crashes, so there's a negative connotation to riding on small aircraft. I try the best I can to try to mitigate those concerns before we ever meet. I ask a lot of questions and I let them ask questions of me. I also want to be very cognizant of the amount of baggage that we're carrying. Considering some of the passengers that we have on board, wheelchairs, folding walkers, things like that can be an issue. In reviewing the AFW info, I'm looking at meeting points at airports and confirming that the passengers, the Earth Angels, anybody that's associated with flight relay pilots, we're all in the same place at the same amount of time. Ground transportation is a huge issue. Our passengers are trying to get to their appointments or get home, and miscommunications are horrible stress they don't need to encounter. So again, it's up to us to try to make sure that everything is in place and it's a seamless, stressless operation for our passengers. The coordination staff is great at handling all of these things, but it's important for us as pilots to make sure that everything comes together on the flight day. Depending upon the type of flight I do, I try to put on some comfort items for our passengers, whether it's snacks or beverages. And then I also want to verify that they don't have any food allergies if I'm putting any kind of a dry snack or anything else on board. Again, don't want to complicate the situation. Little things. Turbulence are a way of flight. I carry 6 sacks with me. Luckily, knocking on wood, nobody's ever needed to use one. I also have earplugs on the airplanes. I don't use the noise attenuating headsets simply because I want to be able to maintain some separation between my flight duties and their opportunity to be able to talk among themselves in the cabin. But also so they bring an iPad or whatever personal device they may, so they can entertain themselves, keep themselves calm, and more importantly, enjoy the flight to the best of their options, including sleeping. We discussed turbulence. I'm fortunate that my airplane, I don't have to use oxygen, but for those of you that are flying around Cirrus, other high performance airplanes, that might be a consideration, especially considering whatever medical issue they have. Use of oxygen may or may not be applicable. Coordinating with relay pilots when we're operating a multi-leg flight is imperative. Make sure, again, all of us are in the right place at the right time. And then prior to 24 hours before departure, after talking to the passengers, initially, I'm going to update them on what's taking place, any changes that have taken place. The airplane is pre-flighted, including fueled prior to the day of departure to avoid any delays. Most all the time, we are repositioning our aircraft to meet those people. Reaching out to the destination FO. Fuel prices vary, ramp fees vary, some are extremely high. I want to make sure of what I'm in for before I arrive. Angel Flight generally will be able to coordinate and send trip itinerary information to FBOs that charge us ramp fees. But I also carry an itinerary with me that I have removed or blacked out the passenger related information. I confirm with passengers all of the baggage that they intend to carry, let him know that we are a little bit restricted. And generally speaking, I don't have a problem. Day of trip, it's always intended to arrive 1 hour prior to departure. That way we can be there in place prior to the passengers arriving. They tend to arrive early on these flights. They don't want to be late for the appointments. In some cases, they waited several months to get. Once the trip is completed, filing the mission report is extremely important for Angel Flight to be able to get additional information for other legs of this trip, return trips, just general information. And most importantly, is self-assessing the flight. How did we do as a crew? How did we do as an organization? There's always room for improvement. Next slide, please. Once I get logged in, then I can start to find the trips that I want to fly. By getting onto the home page, it opens up a lot of opportunities to check. Excuse me for just a moment. It gives me opportunities to go ahead and look at what either viewpoints or the app, whichever I'm choosing to use. And I'll look at the overall type of flight that's being done. What's the distance? What's the expected weather? What's the weight? Again, with that focus on safety and being able to complete the mission. Next slide, please. Once on the page, you have a choice of multiple flights to choose: available, pending, map, if you're going someplace out of your normal area, or My Flights. On the My Flights page, if you have set your preferences up for the number of passengers that you want to carry, maximum loads, minimum runways, etc., which can be done on your profile, it allows the system to be able to suggest trips available to you. Next slide, please. A filtering system is then displayed for the available missions. And you can break this down in any number of ways: date ranges, flights near yourself, specific to your wing, etc., etc. The options to be able to choose different flights goes a long way, and the system is designed in such a way to maximize what we try to do. As Sherry mentioned earlier, a lot of times I will try and do multiple legs. No reason to bring the airplane out of the hangar if I can't be productive. I'm based in Reno. I do a lot of NorCal flights. So I might pick a passenger up in Redding, take them to Palo Alto, either pick up another passenger from Palo Alto and take them to their destination. Best completing as many missions and utilizing the airplane as well as I possibly can. This is an option that's available to us, and I'll explain in just a couple moments how using the pending page in viewpoints can give us additional information. Next slide, please. On the wing page, this will give us specific information relative to our wing. Once we find a trip that we want, we can look at some of the details. In this particular example, it's a child 7 years old. She'll be traveling with 2 people at a total weight of 426 pounds. It gives us departure airport, mentions that there's an Earth Angel involved, which reminds me that I need to do some extra coordination, and then of course the flight. On the right side of the screen offers a filled and request box. This could be a multi-leg flight that you want to do both legs. You can certainly do that. In the discussion thread, that's where we would find, in this case, the Earth Angel's contact information to be able to connect with him or her to be able to coordinate the flight. There also may be another more convenient airport that we can use to be able to complete this flight. The airports that Angel Flight chooses are based on a number of facts. Our local knowledge may help to be able to make the flight a little bit smoother, transportation a little bit easier for the Earth Angel or for whomever else is flying the trip, working the trip. Next slide, please. In the pending pages, This shows all the trips that are currently in progress or in development. There are oftentimes that relay trips will have one leg, maybe two legs filled. And depending upon where we are starting, we have the option in the pending section to be able to see we may want to pick up another leg. If a trip is going, say, for example, from Eugene through Sacramento to Fresno and then down to Santa Monica, it may be more productive for me to fly up to Eugene if I'm going to be in the area, and thereby give that pilot an opportunity to not fly a deadhead leg from one city to the next, also to be able to be a little easier on the passengers and to be able to give them a little seamless, less stressful flight with making less landings. Next slide, please. Once the mission itinerary or the mission is accepted and the itinerary is sent to us, all of the relevant information is available. Specific to the passenger information section, I want to look, first of all, is this a first flight? I want to look at the baggage and then start looking at the legs. This particular example is of a trip that I flew that was initially a relay trip, and I flew both legs down to Orange County. It makes it a lot easier for the passengers. Depending upon the airplane you're flying, you can do the same sort of thing. When I talk to the passengers, I want to keep the conversation light, the technical jargon down to a minimum. I'm considering what they're going through, their emotions, their need to travel is not usually from desire. It's because they have some sort of a condition that is going to detract from the normal personality. We have to be cognizant of this. We have to be considerate of what they're experiencing. Depending upon the airplane, we need to be familiar, make them familiar with the type of aircraft that we're operating. If you've only ever flown on a 747, a 737 is a small airplane. If you've never flown on a small aircraft, anything that doesn't have a flight attendant is considered scary. And we have to be able to put them at ease, to give them the opportunity to, again, relax and enjoy the flight as we can present it to them. Next slide, please. This displays multiple flights that are available for your area, again, based on your selection and your options list as completed in your profile. By having all of the blanks filled, number of passengers, types of flights that you want to fly, maximum amount of miles that you want to fly in a trip, the system will offer to you some of the best options that meet your criteria. Scrolling down on this page will also give you an option for what's known as long flights. And this is a series of relays that you may choose to fly for whatever the reason. And they're legs that could be 2, 3, or more, but they are all open and ready for travel. Recently added on the page is the frequently asked questions up at the very top. This replaces the support section. In the frequently asked questions, it offers basically our operations manual and will answer the bulk of the questions that you'll probably have. At this point, you can go ahead and pull up old videos, you can pull up manuals, you can pull up different types of information relevant to our operation. Next slide, please. Specific to the VPOIDs versus the mobile app, down towards the bottom of the frequently asked questions, much of the functionality of the two systems is addressed. The mobile app is extremely handy to have. It is mission-centric. The VPOIDs app, accessed through the web, will give you a lot more information, some very specific things that I can offer in a moment. And on the mobile app, there's one particular function that I truly enjoy using. Next slide, please. Entering the mobile app, it starts off with the missions available, etc. Then takes you down, and when you get into the available missions section, that's where you can start to choose. Based on your selections, your criteria based on your profile, you can start off with best missions for me or missions in my wing. All missions does just that. It's a wide variety. Probably not one that would get used too often unless you're doing a lot of extreme cross-country flying. Long missions, we'll talk about the relay flights. This opens up the window to the multi-leg flights, as previously suggested, say Eugene to Santa Monica. If you're capable of flying that kind of a flight, this is the menu that you want to look at to find your legs. All missions, again, it opens up everything. You can sort through it once you get into that folder, but initially it's a little bit on the overwhelming side, but it is there. Next slide, please. One of the main things I personally like about mobile app is the opportunity to select a different wing. On the available missions, third button in from the left, you can choose which wing you're looking for. For example, I go to Idaho with some frequency. If I'm up in Idaho, I'll look at the Idaho wing, the Oregon wing, the Washington wing. There may be some flights that I can operate that allow me to satisfy the need that AFWs provides, and I get a little tax benefit while I'm up enjoying the airplane. I find the availability of looking at different wings wonderful when I'm just out doing personal business or personal travel. And again, as depicted on the second side of that screen, long missions is available there for multi-leg flights. Next slide, please. At the conclusion of the flight, I always self-assess. I look at what I did right and what I did wrong and what needs to be done better on subsequent flights. The passenger issue, I have had a couple of passengers where safety was a concern. This was not a person that should be flying with us, or they've had excess baggage. Does happen to be a relay flight, or the passenger is returning anytime soon, then that needs to be sent back to coordination so they can make sure that other pilots are aware of the potential problem. This may affect how they choose to accept or decline the flight. Next slide. In that moniker of safety, we have what's known as the Swiss cheese model. Basically, it's designed to use all information available to a pilot, whether it be flight service, air traffic control, electronic devices that we have on the airplane, to try and mitigate any kind of issues. The theory is if all the holes line up, something bad is probably going to happen. But if we use the various barriers that are available to us, this should mitigate and what we refer to as trap any errors before they escalate to a higher level. Next slide, please. Another theory for maintaining safety is the ABCs, or threat error management. This is widely used in commercial aviation, not just with the airlines, but with charter and some of the top corporate operations. Again, constantly assessing what's taking place. Is air traffic backed up today? How is that going to affect our flight? Is the weather conditions worse than what we expected? Is the airplane not performing to the level we anticipated? Is the passenger load heavier? Are we dealing with higher density altitude due to temperature? Is a weather front moving in that's going to increase turbulence? Constantly assessing the information, not letting ourselves get overloaded to the point of exiting the green area, the safe area, and venturing out into the yellow or the red. A situation occurred many years ago when I had just started flying air ambulance for a professional company in the Bay Area. I was go, 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 trying to get the mission completed, and I was reminded by my first officer to hurt one, or to hurt five to save one did not make any sense. So it forced me to slow down, take a look at everything that was going on, and not feel so mission oriented as to compromise the overall safety of the flight. As single pilots, for most of us, maintaining proper management of the airplane, use of checklists is paramount to safety. Many of the safety groups out there nowadays are focusing on a mock two-pilot crew. In the airlines, in professional aviation, we often have two pilots, and we have a challenge response checklist. We can do that as single pilot operations too. When it says flaps, we look at the flap indicator and say flaps checked, flaps set, whatever the command is. We challenge ourselves. Anything that can be done to increase the level of safety, it's important. First for us and secondarily for our passengers. The operation has a tremendous safety record, and we don't want to do anything to decrease that safety record. Next slide. We have a numerous amount of resources available to us. As previously mentioned, the frequently asked question, the volunteers section has a lot of articles in there that cover quite a few different areas, all worthy of review from time to time. YouTube and other types of social media also offer input from different people so as to be able to learn from others' mistakes, learn from other examples. 4 of the channels that I personally enjoy watching are Blanco Illyrio, Bass Aviation, Real ATC, and Pilot Debrief. Juan Brown, or Blanco Illyrio, is a 777 pilot for a major airline. He does a lot of accident reporting, as does Pilot Debrief. Real ATC and Bass Aviation, they offer excerpts of various issues that have taken place throughout the industry, small aircraft as well as large aircraft. And again, it's examples on how we can do things, how they may correlate to operations that we've been involved in to be able to run a safer operation. And that is our focus, is safety. I think that does it for my presentation.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you so much. Does anybody have questions first for Sean? And then after we've taken those questions for Sean, we will take some just in general questions as well. By the way, David did pop into the chat, the checklist, the links to those YouTube, the ATC channels, et cetera, that that Sean was talking about. So those are all in there for you, and we can send them out in a communication as well. So any questions for Sean, you can drop it in the chat. You can raise your hand. If nobody else is speaking, you can unmute yourself and shout out and we'll answer you. Blake, go ahead.
Do you use the FRAT for each of your flights before you go?
I do not. Frankly, I'm only recently aware of the FRATS program. I am aware of it from other operations, but I have not used the Angel Flight one. It is something that I would like to. Again, I was just introduced to it in preparation for this presentation. So yes, I will be looking at it.
I guess a follow-up question then for those that might be familiar with it, I'm looking at it now, and each one of them has a 0, 1, and a 2 in the drop-down box. I'm not sure which of those to select under which scenarios, if anyone could speak to that.
Stefan, could you perhaps answer that one for us?
Hi, sure. So this was something that was developed with a previous safety officer and tailored towards our operations a little bit. So taking the concept of a FRAT and adjusting it to, the typical Angel Flight profile. And basically, the higher the score you get, the more risk. And at the end of the FRAT, it will kind of give you a risk assessment based on that. So you want to put in the higher number for each of those items that represents a greater risk. Does that make sense?
It does to a certain degree. For example, the first one is pilot less than 100 hours and make and model. So if I were to say yes to that, would I select a 1 or a 2?
So you want the higher number.
And a 0 would be a no. I guess I don't understand the difference between a 1 and a 2 if a 0 is no, I don't have less than 100 in the make and model.
I think if you think about it, like, let's say I have 1,000 hours in the plane, that'd definitely be a 0, or more than 100. If it was 99, that might be a 1. If it was 10, that might be a 2. So in other words, the fewer hours you have in the make and model, the more risk.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was just trying to figure that out because a lot of them seem like yes or no questions, but yet there's 3 options to choose. So
Yeah, I think the way to think about it is, again, coming up with a larger number when there's more risk involved, then you kind of assess that. You give it your own sort of personal assessment, like, how do I feel right now? Well, that put it on a scale that represents how you feel about that.
okay.
So a couple things here. Jeff, I see you, and I'll get to you in 1 second. Anne has dropped the link into the article about the frat that might be helpful to continue to explain that. For those of you that are asking about opportunities for mission assistance, for those that have been on earlier town halls, you will have heard us say we know and acknowledge we don't have the most perfect system yet for mission assistance. So in order to give you all a better answer, I'm going to ask David to jot down those names that are people that are asking about mission assistance. And David or Rochelle, depending on what wing you are in, will reach out to you directly to give you an answer. So not dodging the question at all, but I'd like them to be able to give you a better, more in-depth personal opportunity to get on a mission. Jeff Surratt, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you guys because by joining this organization, it gives me a reason to fly. I mean, it was one thing to have my certificate and yeah, I'm going to get up and plan, I'm going to go get $100 burger or whatever. But now I've got a reason to fly, and I am so humbled by this opportunity, and it's awesome. Even though I've only flown a couple missions. What I've run into and what I'm running into, and it seems to be working okay, I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing, is especially here in Southern California, it's not as bad now, but we've got the marine layer that rolls in, and especially out of San Diego, whatever, that throws delays off. And so with the last one and then with the one tomorrow, I reached out to the patient and said, is there any way that you can adjust your appointment? Or is that appointment time set in stone? Should I be reaching out to the patient for that, or should I be reaching out to you guys and conveying that and having you guys convey that to the passenger?
So I think most often it's best if you reach out to us here, because that way we can, sometimes we already know the answer to that question. And then sometimes it does put a little pressure, it can put a little pressure on the passengers. A lot of our passengers feel a little bit indebted or beholden, whatever the term might be. And I have to say that as far as appointment time, it's not always, it generally is, I don't want to say set in stone, but they're pretty tight about it. As any of us know who've made medical appointments these days, it's hard to get an appointment, takes a while, and once you've got it, it's hard to change. What sometimes we can do, and of course it depends on where you're based, if where you're based is the issue, but if it's an airport, so I'll use Santa Monica for example, if you're trying to get into Santa Monica and that's the issue, we can sometimes move it to an airport that's a little bit more inland. It might mean a longer ground drive, but you might not have the morning conditions that are the issue. So always feel free to give us a call and then we can reach out to the passenger. If you're already talking to the passenger, you can bring that up with them as well. But it is pretty hard for them sometimes to push those appointment times.
Okay.
Tacey, if you're talking about where you find that frat article, we can email that to you so you've got it. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
David,
you.
would you email that to Tacey, please? Putting a lot on your to-do list, David.
Yeah, no, I got it. Thanks.
Ron, you've got a question here. Can you clarify that for me?
Yeah, I was talking about the frat in regards to is there a guide to follow up on Blake's question, the 012, is there a guide or some um, uh, legend that allows us to select based upon parameters with each one of those questions, or is it it seems very subjective to me.
So there is an article, and I have to be honest, I haven't read the article for a long time. So there is a frat article there in the chat. If you see that and click on that link, that I hope should answer your questions. And if it does not, feel free to give us a call and we will help try and clarify. And maybe clarify the article if the article is not totally clear. I haven't, again, apologize, I haven't read it in a while.
Thank
Brian Burke, sure. Brian Burke, so there is no paperwork that you need to do anymore for passengers. The only paperwork that was needed in the past was the waiver of liability, and we now get that signed up front. So no paperwork that you need to do with the passengers. The only exception to that would be, and this is rare, if you showed up to the airport and the passenger brought an unexpected companion. So they were going to bring their spouse and instead they brought their sister, and Angel Flight, the office is not aware of it. Therefore, we might not have a waiver of liability signed in advance. If that is the case, and there is an opportunity for you to get that signed right there when you log in to VPOIDS, either on the mobile app or on the web version. You can access your mission form or you can access it through your email, and there is a link to the day of waiver so that you can have that person sign that waiver. You would then want to notify us, and we would make sure that that waiver was signed for the future. But that is really a rare exception. Let's see. Anybody else have questions?
I have a quick question for Sean. I think a lot of what I hear from new volunteers when it comes to hesitation about signing up to fly is the fear of cancellation, whether that could be like weather related or unexpected maintenance. And I was just wondering if Sean could speak of his experiences in cancellation and what that process has been like for him, to give sort of the new volunteers in the audience what to expect when it comes to that type of situation.
Sure, thank you, Ann. I have had to cancel a couple of flights, and there has been absolutely no issue. Contact the coordinator, contact the passenger, relay pilots as necessary. Everybody's aware of it. I have had a couple of pilots have to cancel their portion, and as a wing or a relay pilot, they've asked me if I can help out. We all work together. Again, safety is the highest level of standard. If a pilot who is typically a day VFR pilot is likely to encounter weather conditions that their aircraft or they personally don't feel comfortable doing, absolutely don't push it. Talking previously about the marine layer that extends along the southwest coast, June gloom, that sucker can come in and mess things up fast. We don't need to be pushed in a bad situation. There has never been an issue that I've experienced or been associated with where a cancellation was a problem. Passengers are forewarned that depending upon what's taking place, a cancellation can occur. It's part of flying. You don't get in a car that has a flat tire. You don't get in an airplane that's not operating properly. If we run into a maintenance situation, the flight needs to be canceled. Just because one mag's not working right, don't take the airplane. The flights are not that important to make it so critical that we need to take a substandard flight for any reason. Here in Reno, Carson City is one of the airports where we have a couple of pilots. That runway does not get plowed if it has more than a half an inch of snow on it. Or excuse me, less than a half an inch of snow. It's not safe to take off. One of our pilots down there called me and said, "Can you help out?" Absolutely. we're all in this together. We try to help out. Coordination, the coordinator needs to be the first point of contact, and then a decision can be made whether we can substitute a flight quickly. That's one of my reasons for reassessing the flight 24 hours prior to departure. What has changed in the week since I've accepted the flight versus what's going to happen the following day?
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Casey, is it mandatory to file a flight plan? So, you know, we don't operate the aircraft, right? You do. The volunteers operate the aircraft. So we don't really make much mandatory other than, of course, that you follow the guidelines of the affirmation and that you're legal flying what you do. So, you know, we hope that you file a flight plan or have flight following, but we can't demand that of you, but we suggest it. We had a lot of people here today. So, Sean, thank you for your great topic. And it was interesting for people, I know. I've already gotten a couple of messages from people who enjoyed the presentation. Those of you that, again, are interested in the mission assistant, David has taken down your names and we will reach out to you about those. The next town hall in July, again, is safety. So look for the announcements about that. We have a couple of safety officers who are really sharp and will provide you with some super interesting information. And there is not a better topic that we can talk about other than safety. It's primary and to our existence. So please join us for that one. I think that's it. Thank you so much to everybody. We will see you in July. And for the staff and Sean that were involved in the presentation today, please stay on. Everybody else, we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.